Well, it's that time again, that time when we step into the virtual bar and invite our listeners to pull up a chair and have a discussion with us on any myriad of interesting topics. Hey, Greg.
Hey.
We're your hosts, Greg, Ken, and Chris, and we are three pastors walking into a bar. Ken's here. He's just not quite here.
He's passed out.
Hey, yell at us, Ken. Hi, guys. Over here by the door. Yeah, he's just kind of hanging out by the door over there. I don't know what he's doing.
Sergeant at arms.
Yeah, he's something.
Keeping an eye.
He's something, that's for sure. No doubt about it. All right. Well, boy, Mark chapter 14, verse number 7. For you always have the poor with you, and whatever you want, you can do good for them, but you will not always have me. It's the words of Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Love that guy.
That's a good thing.
He's a good guy. Not just a prophet, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Son of God. So in this episode, we're going to be talking with some wonderful people we're going to be introducing here in just a minute. But by way of an introduction, homelessness is a constant problem in our region. Over 2,000 men, women, and children in the inland Northwest are experiencing homelessness right now as we speak, which is kind of lame because it is really snowing out there. I often wonder to myself a lot of times when we're like driving around and you see the one homeless guy that Athol has.
Yeah, or one guy.
You know? And I often wonder, it's like, how does he do it?
He likes the snow.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He does.
Being out in it.
I don't know, man. It seems very uncomfortable to me. It's a terrible tragedy, though. There's a lot of them. Food and shelter are crucial, but are not enough to heal the lives damaged by trauma, abuse, addiction, mental illness, or neglect. Since 1951, the Union Gospel Mission has been providing a pathway out of homelessness through a whole-person approach to physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional restoration. Recovery programs, mentorships, job training, and transitional housing options are just a few of the resources made available by Union Gospel Mission. We did a wonderful interview with the executive director, Phil Altmeyer, who was just here at the church just a couple of weeks ago at the men's
dinner.
Yep.
Yeah.
But back in March, in the episode titled "You Will Always Have the Poor with You," we had a really eye-opening interview with Phil. And kind of changed a lot of people's perspectives on how to deal with the homeless situation, and that from a guy who's been on the boots on the ground for a very long time. Closest to us here in our wonderful town of Athol is we have UGM's Center for Women and Children, less than 20 miles away from us here. And so today, we have two folks with us today. We have our guest, the center's advancement coordinator, Kristin Cope, and we have also the director of women's ministries, Joanne Zaijcek. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. You know, we always love to hear what people in our community are doing as far as missions are concerned. So, starting with you, Joanne, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with UGM and what exactly your role is?
Well, I started with working on a missions committee at our church and was invited to go to Anna Ogden Hall, which at that time was our women's ministry recovery center. And when I went over there, I was so impressed. I thought, wow, when they build this facility, I think I will see if I can teach. And then they built the facility, and a couple people suggested that I apply. Never thought I would get the job, but I got it 10 years ago, and we opened up our doors 10 years ago in September.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, and you've been there the whole time.
Whole time.
From ground up. So you've been there through the development of a lot of policies and procedures to bring you guys to where you're at now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been a good journey, you know, because I've learned as well over the years.
Well, it's not like there's any homeless or crisis center schools out there to go to. It's like a lot of learning as you go, I would imagine. And so it's probably been quite a few years of just kind of experimenting around, and experimenting is probably a poor choice of words. Kind of trying things out and seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then adjusting your policies kind of to fit within the scope of what actually does work.
I think the hardest thing for me in the beginning was we talked about we were a grace-based community, and I think Christians have a challenge sometimes. What is grace-based? Sometimes we feel like if you're liberal or really, really nice or you rescue people, that's grace, and sometimes that isn't grace.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we learned with Phil
Yeah.
when he was here last time. I was shocked at his attitudes towards the homeless and what not to do.
Yeah.
It's very amazing.
What actually helps them.
You probably worked with him quite a bit in the setting up and the initial start of Anna Ogden Hall, right?
No. When I was hired, I went and spent 6 months at Anna Ogden Hall to learn about it. And one of the things that I noticed was a lot of knowledge that I had came from being in the church, loving people, but loving people in a way with boundaries.
So who were you learning from in those first 6 months? Who were your teachers? Just people off the streets?
A lot of prayer.
Okay.
And would call other directors and say, hey, I have this situation. We have a church in Oregon, or pastors who had been involved in the rescue programs, and they developed the grace base. And so we went to those trainings as well. But again, when you ask what is grace, it's really a challenge because even the two of you are going to define it differently.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of experience.
So the connection between Anna Ogden Hall and UGM is what?
Well, the reason it's called Anna Ogden Hall is because a wonderful woman donated, the family donated when she passed away, the facility, and they kept her name. But it's actually the Union Gospel Missions Recovery Center for Women, but it's called Anna Ogden Hall.
Okay.
So it's just like the Center for Women and Children, but in Coeur d'Alene.
Okay. So
We
you
do
are
the same thing.
all under one umbrella then?
Yes,
As far as the
exactly.
Union Gospel Mission. Okay.
All right. Okay. And your role is Director of Ministries. What specifically does that mean?
I oversee all of the women's ministries, the crisis shelter, Anna Ogden Hall, and CWC.
Okay. CWC is
Center for Women and Children.
Okay, so that's here,
Yes.
right, in Coeur d'Alene.
Coeur d'Alene area.
And then there's one over in Spokane, and then there's one elsewhere. Is that correct?
Well, you have UGM, Union Gospel Mission, and they're throughout the country.
Right.
But we have the Inland Northwest, which is Spokane and Coeur d'Alene.
Okay.
And now we have one in Lewiston. We're in the process
Lewiston.
of...
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Okay.
It's not
okay.
built yet.
But they're working on
We're
it.
working on it.
Okay. Yeah, good old Lewiston. And then we have Kristin Cope with us. And so what's your role with UGM, and how did you end up getting there?
Yeah. I am the advancement coordinator, and so I get to work with our financial partners and work with the community and work with churches like you, and so I love my job. I actually came to UGM 10 years ago when we very first opened. I had graduated college and was kind of doing my own thing and seeking my career path, and then the Lord kind of interrupted me. I ended up giving my life to Jesus and just thinking, I want to do something that it just revolves around God. And I remember finding the Center for Women and Children and UGM and just being drawn to it. And so I went to volunteer orientation at UGM and just said, use me, I'll do anything. And when they found out my background of public relations and things like that, they ended up sending me over to Joanne when the center was opening, and the position that was open was her assistant. So 10 years ago, I became Joanne's assistant. Worked there for about a year.
And she had a baby.
Yeah, I was pregnant most of the time. And so that was how I got connected to UGM. I ended up leaving UGM for a while. I did quite a bit of marketing and building websites and things while I was raising my boys. And now they're old enough to be in school, so I'm back.
Yay.
Hey,
Yeah.
Awesome.
good to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So, can you give us a little bit of a history of this CWC and how it started? When was it decided? What was the need? I mean, you don't look at Coeur d'Alene and think, wow, there's a massive homeless situation in Coeur d'Alene. So, like, what does the CWC deal with on a regular basis? Like, what would you say the bulk of the crises that you deal with are?
Well, I'll back up and answer your first question.
Thank you.
Which will lead into the second, and that is, we've been open 10 years. So about 12, 13 years ago, a group of men from a Bible study wanted to do something for the community. They reached out to Phil and they said, we think a women's center would be really good. I don't know if you recall, we had a huge homeless population with tents in behind Target.
You want to turn the microphone forward a little bit. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
No.
By Target. And so there was a concern.
That's good.
And they reached out to Phil. So Phil began to have conversations, and we were just blown away that the community embraced it. They began to raise money. Churches raised money, and that's how CWC started. When I got my job, I was curious. I said, what are the types of women that are going to come through our doors? Are they different than the women from Spokane? And Sonny Westbrook at the time, who was my boss, he said, Joanne, they're just women in need. They need Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have been serving women for the last 10 and a half years, just helping them to meet Jesus and work through the trauma that they've gone through. Because most homelessness is not just homelessness. There's a big story behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that we discovered, the amount of drug abuse and mental illness that is behind a majority of the homelessness.
Yeah.
Surprised. I was really taken aback by that. Didn't realize that was the problem. And that's what perpetuates it, because you put them in a home or you provide a room and a meal for them, and then all of a sudden they don't want it anymore. They're back out on the street.
Well, and I think the thing that stuck out to me the most and surprised me was the fact that it's not even just a drug problem. Most drugs, people who get into addictions, they're wanting to numb unwanted thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. They're running from memories or emotions, things they don't want to deal with. So they find that drugs makes them feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, it becomes an addiction. And so our heart is to not just address the addictive behavior, but to
what caused it.
What caused it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's some type of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. So in talking about women's centers, I think a lot of times people have the misconception that what you're dealing with are going to be women escaping from domestic violence, or they're going to be women who are going through single motherhood because the dad's not around, and maybe they turn to drug addiction or whatever case may be, or just specifically drug addiction. I don't think that people oftentimes draw the link between all of those things and between homelessness. I think people have a tendency to kind of separate homelessness out as its own kind of issue and not interrelate all of them together as if they're all symptoms of the same problem.
Right.
Yeah. I believe we found that oftentimes they all do relate. You'll have a woman that's struggling with addiction. She's in an abusive situation. And a lot of times the thing that I've found that is kind of the final straw is when women lose their kids. And so we have a lot of women that come in and, when they come in saying, I just want to get my kids back, that's not, enough of a reason to come to the program. But when they say, I want to turn my life around, and they're using that language, they're able to come in and in that second phase, they're able to reunite with their kids. And so we found that that's been, a huge reason too, is wanting to reunify their family and just kind of hitting that rock bottom point. But yes, they are definitely connected.
Yeah, so it's not like you can just walk into the women's center and just be like, okay, I want to get into the women's center and I want to, I want to go through the program. It's not like that. Like, what is step one before we even talk about like what phases and all that you have? Like, Greg's a woman, and she's in trouble, and she goes to the women's.
We did a podcast on that, by the
way. She comes. I didn't say she was an attractive woman. I just,
just a woman.
Comes in and knows that the CWC is there. How would they initiate a contact between themselves and the organization?
Normally what we do is we have 2 orientations a month on Fridays, and the woman calls, sets up an appointment, and then she comes to the orientation. The reason for the orientation is really so she can hear what we're about. Do I want this? Is this something I really want to commit myself to? And it isn't so much about us looking at her, it's more her looking at us. And so we just say, hey, this is what we do, this is what we provide. And then she fills out an application. Many of our women will stay right there, fill it out, and then our coordinator, our First Steps coordinator, that intake specialist, she will call them up, set up an appointment, they do an interview, and then we get the ball rolling.
So similar to UGM, it's not come in, get a warm meal, get a place to sleep, we'll see you later. It's come in, you get into the program.
Not at CWC. We have a men's shelter and a women's shelter. And so if you're just needing to get off the streets, you want a meal, that's where you go. Our heart is always...
Now, where is that located?
They're both in Spokane.
Both right there in Spokane. Okay. Does the center here in Coeur d'Alene do that same thing?
They don't. When we first opened our doors, we tried to have a crisis shelter, but what we found is it doesn't work as well when you have women in recovery. And we have a small little rescue center. And so what we have turned that into is those are the women who are really wanting program. They're saying, yes, I want to do more than just get a meal. And they start there.
So if they're looking for that, we need to send them to Spokane.
Yes.
Okay.
What about a girl who comes along and she really does want to try and get into the program and wants to apply, but she's going to have to wait for the orientation. She's going to have to wait to apply. There's going to be a period of time where she's not going to be able to be in a place. Is that a person that we would send to the crisis center as well until they could process in?
Yep. And that's what I love about it, because we all work together. And so if we have a woman who knocks on the door and says, I need a place tonight, we will then probably take her to the crisis shelter, and then we'll work on the process of the orientation.
Yeah. And then that's taken into account when she's there at the crisis center, that she's actually working to get into the program. So it's not like they're going to, I'm not sure how the process goes for like people that are in the housing part of it, or in the we need a place to stay right now kind of thing. I would imagine that there's some kind of mechanism for kind of moving those people out.
Oh, absolutely. The thing with the women's shelter, and that's what we've been trying to break, that paradigm, is they think, oh my goodness, it's a crisis shelter. It's a women's shelter. I don't want to go there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever been to the facility, it's like 30,000 square feet. Absolutely beautiful. Women.
Are you talking the one in Spokane or?
In Spokane.
Yeah. Okay.
And so downstairs is for those who are just wanting a meal, and maybe they're looking for a job. They're waiting for their next paycheck. But upstairs, we begin the process of recovery, and we have what we call our First Steps program. And those are women who say, I want more than just a meal.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have what we call ERP, which is Employment Ready program. Those are for women who don't necessarily have an addiction. They just need a job. And we help them to get employment. And then for those who have addictions or more concerns, we will go, okay, what about the recovery program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a long commitment. It's 18 to 24 months.
Right. Yeah. Chris and I went down and visited the Coeur d'Alene Center, and Kristin gave us
the escort. It's an amazing
facility.
Yeah,
it was beautiful, clean, nice, very inviting.
Yeah. So if you're getting visions in your head of like this place that's just filled with bunk beds and a whole bunch of women just kind of hanging around, milling about,
with blankets,
it's not like that at all.
Not at all.
Not even
beautiful.
Close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nice.
That's why I became a woman, is so I could go there and spend some time there.
Are you still identifying as that now? Yeah.
Well, hey,
still working on it.
You told me I was.
Yeah. So I think there are probably a lot of misconceptions about this whole process and how it all works, because I'm not sure that I could have told you, what we've been down there, we've toured it, and I know that you guys help women in recovery primarily, try to get back on their feet. But I don't think I knew that there was no housing for people. Either that or I just missed it on the tour, which is likely. But it's so if Gregina shows up, she goes through the process of applying, and if they need a place to go, you take them over to Spokane where they can stay, and then whatever the policies are, it's built into the soup that if they're trying to get into the program, they're given a little bit of grace as far as how long they can stay or like what goes on with that, I'm assuming.
Our program has 3 phases, and it starts in January, May, and September. And so when I first got hired, women would start coming in right beforehand to start the program. And exactly what you said, we had women come, knock on our doors, and they go, I want a program now, I need help. And we didn't want them to wait a month, 2 months. And so we began a program called First Steps. And that's what we have in the red building that you toured. And those are for women who are like, I need it now. And what we have found is that's been extremely helpful, because it gives them the time to get their minds clear, settle in, work through some of the issues they might have, maybe a warrant, something like that. And then we try to get them in the program. So most women who come to us, it's not weeks out. It may be days out.
Okay, so it's not like they're having to wait around for 30 days for the process to intake them in.
But the beautiful thing is we have the women's shelter.
If there is a time frame.
Correct.
But it's never going to be a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, you had a whole, was it an apartment complex right next to the shelter that you guys have obtained?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the women, I know you said some of the workers live there?
No, it's actually just for aftercare.
Just for the
so women that have commenced and gone through our program are able to go and live right next door.
Okay.
And they stay connected. Yeah. So if they've completed the program or gone through, they're able to sort of be on campus still. Come over, have lunch, stay connected to the staff.
Right. And do they pay rent there and they support themselves? Okay.
They do. They pay on a sliding scale.
Part of the community then.
30% of their income. And most of the women don't make a lot of money.
Right.
One of the things I wanted to mention, and Phil probably said this, we have found that the success rate is if we can keep a man or a woman sober for 5 years, there's like an 85% chance that they will not relapse. And so we didn't have an aftercare program, and we realized that was what was missing. They lived in our facility for 18 to 24 months, and then they would go out into an apartment or whatever, and they would just relapse. We lose them.
Yeah.
And so now we have a great aftercare program. So even women who don't finish our program, they can come, get loved on, cared, support. We even try to get them housing, things like that. But the apartments next door are a great accountability piece.
So let's do these in order, right? So you have the intake where you're going to get in and you're going to, like, let's just say that you are a candidate for First Steps. Like you want to turn your life around. Maybe you've lost your kids or you're in a drug addiction kind of issue. And you've come in and you say, I need some help, guys. And then you look at them and you say, okay, well, you are a candidate for First Steps. What does that look like? What is First Steps all about?
So First Steps will take you to the beginning of the phase. So like right now, women are coming into our program. Even as we speak, we have a woman coming in today. And the program, phase 1, will start in January. And so they live in the rescue center for 30 days. It provides them a time, like I said, of settling down, getting their minds clear. And it also provides them with the opportunity to go, do I want to live in community with all these other women?
Right.
And we begin classes. And they begin some work therapy, because that's part of what we have found is it's really important for women to not only be given some teaching skills, but also a lot of our women have not had a great work history, and it provides them, our heart is from the very beginning getting them work ready, because our goal is when they leave us that they become contributing members of society once again.
And those skills, are they mostly clerical?
Not at all.
Okay, so you teach them everything from auto mechanics to cleaning to computer skills, right?
Yep.
I noticed when we were in there, you had lots of computers in booths set up for training women.
But that's not really part of First Steps, though, right?
No,
Yeah.
First
that's
Steps
after.
is mainly just settling them down
Okay.
and working on, like I said, do they have a warrant? Do they need to get on Medicaid? Most of our women come in and they have health challenges. So we have a clinic there. We get them taken care of medically. Sometimes they need their teeth worked on because all of those things are going to limit them in what they're going to do as
Okay.
they begin to
Very
move forward.
base level kind
Base.
of getting their
Yep.
life and organized so that there's
Yep.
not any crises that come up like warrants or,
Correct.
child type things that are
And-
going to pop up or
And
whatever.
so that can go from 2 weeks to 3 months, depending on
Depending on when they come
When
in
they
and the
come in.
phase is starting.
exactly.
Or does it extend if they need First Steps a little bit longer, perhaps?
Yep. If they need it, then we'll just say, okay. Each woman is based on her own. One of the things that we started a few years ago was a mom track. Because if you have not had your children for a while, and let's say in phase 1 you get your kids back, we have found that to do the full program can be real challenging. So we will make phase 1 2 phases. So she only takes half the classes, which gives her more time with her children to reunite
Gotcha.
and learn possibly parenting skills.
What are the numbers on a monthly basis? Are you getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Our average is about 70 women come through the doors a month.
Oh my gosh,
70.
70.
And
What-
of all those women that come through the doors, how many of them actually qualify for the program?
Well, I would say quite a bit. I couldn't give you a percentage. It isn't that we don't want them. We're simply asking, are you ready? Are you ready to
Qualify is a poor choice of words.
Yeah.
Do we qualify for what you want to do?
Yeah.
Is probably a better way to put it.
What
That's a
happens
great
when
way.
a full-blown addict comes through the door? They're wiped out,
that
incoherent. Do you
that was gonna
take
be-
on that?
That was going to be my next
role?
question. Is First Step take on that role?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't, and we try to connect them with the detox center.
And where is that?
That's part of the problem. Is our community doesn't have a great detox.
Okay, so you can't
We've
send
had a
them to a
couple-
hospital, another clinic somewhere.
We do, but even that has been limited in the last year or two.
Limited in their quality or their abilities
Yeah,
to take
staffing
on.
and all of that, and so we're limited in what we provide.
So it's a
That's
huge
hard
need.
one. It
Almost
is a
like
need.
nobody wants to deal with it.
Yeah.
That or having the funding. My prayer is that somebody's going to say, we need a detox center in Coeur d'Alene.
Mm-hmm.
What would that look like? What would be in a detox center? What would a detox center look like?
Well, especially you have someone who's coming off of alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're not done through a medical type of facility, it can be very dangerous. You know, I mean, and some of the drugs people can die from if they're taking it off.
Taken off too quick. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why methadone was utilized for heroin
Yeah.
addicts to kind of wean them off of heroin.
And Suboxone, things like that. And so it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
And we try to have individuals, I mean, women come in and their urine analysis may be dirty,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want them coming in high as a kite because then,
Right.
one, they're making it unsafe because we have children in the house.
Right.
And plus, we don't know what it's going to look like when they start coming down.
Well, so if you're out there and you're looking at, throw in $20-30 million somewhere just on a whim, you might want to think about a detox center. Surely there's someone out there
right now.
Surely there's someone out there. Wow, that's something. I don't think that's even on people's radars, though. Like,
No.
I think people think about detox centers. They think that people go to the hospital or like programs like yours have some kind of room somewhere where they put people and then they kind of just shake it out or whatever, and there's probably quite a few misconceptions about how all that's handled.
And that's one of the things that Phil brought up to us too, is that they're not going to take somebody that's hiring a kite into the program. You got to get off the drugs before we get you into the program.
And that's one reason, again, that I reiterate the shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we want people high as a kite either in there, but they at least have some time to have clean time if they
Right.
if they need it.
Yeah.
Right. First Steps allows that too,
Yes.
right?
Yes. One neat thing I've noticed too is that a lot of women will come from jail. Jail gives them enough time where they're clean, they can get that clarity, they can begin to think, what do I want for my future? So when they come out, they're able to come into our program and get help. And
That's
so
great.
sometimes that will even provide them clean time.
Do you guys link up with the judiciary system to try and have it accessible to women when they come out of prison?
We do. We have, we get quite a few women from either jail or prison.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we just had an interview with Bob Norris, so it's actually posting today, our sheriff. And so I guess you guys have been in communication with him and talked to him about the jails and working together.
I've actually been really impressed with even the judges, like Judge Mitchell, who has really supported it, not wanting to just throw someone into jail and going, hey, you have a drug problem, but how do we fix it? And so a lot of individuals will come to us as an alternative instead of a writer. They'll say to the judge, hey, can we go through the Union Gospel Missions program?
Nice.
So what I love is we even have the probation officers popping in every week, checking on their ladies.
Nice.
You know,
That's
we have a
great.
great community with
That's great.
law. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you get through your first steps, whether it's 2 weeks or 30 days or whatever it ends up being, and then you move into what part after that?
So we have what we call 5 phases.
Okay.
Phase 1 is the initial. It's, again, 4 months. And we provide classes on boundaries, on addiction, on parenting, and trauma information, you know, helping the man and the woman to figure out what's behind my behavior. What caused this? What are my false beliefs? Where have I got tripped up and believed the lies for so many years? And so we began the educational pieces. We incorporate play in that. Again, work therapy, chores.
That's good. I don't know about you, but I found that it seems like women have really resisted kind of taking the lid off and looking at what's led them to where they are now. And that's kind of where we start. When they're able to look at it and really address, there was trauma in my family of origin. I have gone through a lot, and they're able to begin to peel back those layers. I think that's where we start.
Yeah.
Kind of the
Does that
foundation.
typically happen in the first steps, or is that usually
Well, we're in phase 1 now.
into the
We're in phase-
program?
We start in first steps, but it's kind of like mini classes.
Yeah.
And then in phase 1, it's more. And one of the biggest things I think we look at is identity, is when you're filled with shame and remorse and guilt and self-loathing. We do ugly things when we don't feel good about ourselves or believe that we have worth and value. So that's one of the first things we try to instill. You are loved. You are valued.
And I guess that's all part of an overarching kind of gospel ministry that's happening behind the scenes and everything that is taking place.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there is a lot of classes that are taking place in the first phase to just kind of reintroduce the person not only to themselves and identifying themselves, but also kind of the root causes of what got them there. And so it's really kind of like a self-exploration phase, more or less.
I teach one of the classes in phase 1, and I always tell the women that the goal is awareness. You can't change anything until you're aware of why and what you do. And so if we can just get you to the point of going, oh my goodness, this is why I do it. This is how culture has impacted me. Maybe this is how my family has caused some of these false beliefs or the things that I have done. And we try to take off the shame, especially when women say, maybe my mom and dad weren't the greatest, but now I would never do that, but I've done the same thing. I've lost my kids. And we're like, let's talk about that. You
Is
know,
that fairly common, that situation is perpetuating
Unfortunately.
itself? Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I have also seen is you're finding more generations. Like, it's not abnormal to have mom or grandma in a drug addiction, mom in addiction, and now the child.
Yeah.
And so our heart is if we can connect with a woman, help her to see the things she needs to change in her own life, we can impact the next generation.
Yeah.
And
keeping,
a lot of our babies have trauma too.
yeah.
It's kind of like most
Drug
of our
babies.
issues today. It's multi-generational in its scope. It's you have to work through the generations. It's not a quick fix for sure.
Yeah. I think the fact that you keep them on the hook, so to speak, for 3.5 years after the program, and that has been a big success.
We're going to get to that.
Part of that.
We're only in phase one, Greg. Quit getting your head of yourself.
We'd
all right?
already talked about it.
You're terrible at this.
Just
You're getting
wanted
ahead
to
of
say-
yourself.
Yeah, you do what you
just
gotta
get
do.
so excited about that.
I think like a woman.
That sixth phase.
Hey.
Well, you did apply. You're in. You're in phase one. Congratulations. And so they've taken that class for, what'd you say it was? 4
months.
4 months? Okay. Are all the phases 4 months, basically?
It's all the same unless you're a mom track.
Okay. And then it's a little bit different because you're taking a little bit more time for the kiddos.
Right.
Does it mean that the whole program is longer on the mom track, or is it just less stuff?
It usually ends up being a semester longer, but
Gotcha.
typically the mom needs it,
Yeah.
and it gives her a little bit more time to get established.
Yeah. Okay, so you moved out of phase one, and let's say you've negotiated it unsuccessfully. Do you go back to phase one, or is it a possibility to not get out of a phase?
It can be. And so, again, we take a look at it. Each woman is individual.
Right.
How many classes has she missed? Has she done her homework? Has she possibly blown out from using again? But our hope is to keep moving them. We've had women who will move into phase 2, but we know that they haven't really taken this class well, and so we'll add that on to the class.
Okay, so it's
individual.
It's adjusted to be a little bit organic in the way that it kind of
Exactly.
flows from phase to phase. That's good.
In the mom track, are they? Can I talk about the mom track?
Are you going to go ahead of ourselves? Because we're in
I know,
phase
is
2
that-
now, okay?
I know, but
We're not
mom
gonna be
track-
talking about
mom
phase
track
8,
was
right?
back.
But
What-
your mom, you want to get your kids back.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do some of these women get their children back in the mom phase, or
Usually we
in-
start the mom phase when she gets her kids back. So let's
okay,
say
all right,
mom has been working with CPS. She hasn't had her kids for 3-4 years. And now she's at a place where she's stable. She can get her children. We will then say, whatever phase it is, let's start your mom track, phase 1, phase 2, and
Okay.
make that a little bit longer. So she has the time to spend with her child because we don't want her in classes all day.
right.
And the
right. So it's
facility
kind of
has an amazing
Yes.
child care
Yeah.
section built into it. We toured it. It was pretty amazing.
When I first started, we said, if you can get hold of mom and bring her healing, you bring healing to the child.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what we have discovered is many of our babies are just as traumatized. And so we communicate that we are not just a child care, but we are also wanting to provide care for your children. And I don't want to say it's as completely trauma therapy, but we started something, and many facilities use this. It's called trust-based relationship intervention. It's been used with high-risk kids, orphanages, babies being adopted, things like that, highly traumatized children. And that's a program that we use. And our hope is to teach that to moms so that they can learn to parent their children differently.
Yeah. And you mentioned CPS. What's your relationship with them? Is it a good working relationship, or is it strained?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think because we help with the answers. Our goal is, as much as possible, to reunite mom with their children.
Yeah.
But I have also communicated very clearly, mom's got to work harder than we are.
Yeah.
'Cause
But their
sometimes-
philosophy is going to be different than
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
missions.
we've had some experience with Idaho CPS, and they seem to, even at fault sometimes, lean very heavily on just keeping kids with the parents no matter what.
Yeah.
And it could be problematic. We've experienced that firsthand. But that's good. So sometimes a woman might bring her kids with her, even at times. Then it's not necessarily just about a woman getting her children back. It might be that she brought them with her. She's like, hey, guys, I need help.
And what we have found is if mom has her children, we want to keep them together. But if
Yeah.
a mom hasn't had her children for several years, our encouragement is that she does at least one phase on her own to get settled and get herself in a good place, because it's really hard to start phase 1 and try to reunite with kids that maybe you don't know that much about them.
Yeah.
And the kids are allowed to be with her
And so
at that time, right?
Yeah, and so what we will do is we'll probably double to triple our children's head count on weekends. Because on the weekends, the kids will come in, or CPS will work with us and say, okay, we want the child to come for 3 hours once a week. And we do that, and mom's doing really well, and now we're going to do one day.
Okay, so they are separated from their children
Not all of them.
Not all of them, but
some of
Just
them
the
are.
ones who have been dealing with CPS
okay.
or something.
All right. That's great.
So phase 2, tell me about phase 2. What is phase 2?
Phase 2 is similar to phase one, but you're doing more heart work. You're going into the deeper places. You're getting a lot more counseling. And
Individual counseling or group counseling?
Both.
Both.
And so that started in phase 1, and we look a lot at the addiction, so the behaviors behind it, and we also look at codependency, which is huge with women.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're dealing with that as well. And so they're just taking more classes. They have a class called In Search of Significance, again, an identity piece. They continue in parenting, addiction classes, things like that. So the first 2 semesters are very, I don't want to say book heavy, but teaching. We do a lot of process groups.
When it's internalized, that's why.
It's the heart pieces.
Yeah, it's dealing with the soul.
Yeah. So phase 1 and 2, you're looking at the heart pieces. Phase 3, you start moving outwards.
Okay, and then phase 3, see, Gregina has done well. She's moving into phase 3.
I am ready to attack the world.
Good job. What's phase 3?
I've got my kids back.
Yay. And so
I know your kids.
You've been doing vocational education, doing computer classes. In phase 3, we start working on your resume and going, okay, how are you going to share your story? You haven't worked for the last 6 years because of your drugs, but how do you share it in a way that empowers you? Doesn't bring shame, but that you can be honest and open. And so they do mock interviews. They begin to dream. Marcia Reese oversees our voc ed department, and she does an incredible job saying, what would you like to do? Not what you have to do, but what would you like to do? What are you good at? And so that starts in phase 3. It's looking outwards, and that's where a lot of women will have a lot of anxiety because in phase 2, they're like, this is never going to end.
Still under control.
Yeah.
And then phase 3, they're like, oh, it's almost over. I don't know what I'm going to do. And they begin to panic.
Yeah. I had one girl tell me that the other day, they were processing with me at lunch, and she said, when we first come into the program, 18 months feels so long. It feels like an eternity. It's almost a joke because as an addict, you can't really look that far ahead. Yeah. It just feels like forever. And then as you start to go, you start to feel like, oh my gosh, it's going to be over so soon. I'm just now getting settled. And
I don't want to leave.
Yeah, they get settled and they begin to learn
They've made new friends.
Yeah. And so then they start to feel like, oh, it's coming up so quickly and I need more time. And, so it's interesting that perspective. The ones that really do well, they start to feel like I really need to really soak in this time and it's coming up quick. So I thought that was an interesting shift.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. When we toured the facility, noticed a really beautiful sanctuary there. And how much of that is a part of these different phases? Are they encouraged or forced, or it's part of the program to go to chapel?
We're a union gospel mission. Gospel is the center. And I love that when they designed CWC, they put the chapel right in the center, of our home. Yeah. And so the gospel is center to everything. But a lot of our women have also come from religious abuse and legalism and the law. And so our heart, we encourage it. We want them to go. We have Bible in every phase. It's strewn out. Like even as a parent, you don't just have a Bible class with your kids and they go to church on Sundays and that's all you talk about. It's all we do. It's
embedded in everything.
It is. And in the curriculum, I have a job that I get to pray anytime. We just say, hey, can we pray? Start a class. Can we pray? And it's strewn throughout, which is beautiful without hitting anybody over the head. This is just who we are. We love Jesus.
Yeah. Part of the program.
Yeah. And not everybody who goes through the program is a believer.
Yeah. We have a job like that too.
It's similar to that. Yeah. Seems like it's very gospel centric.
Yeah, very gospel centered, and got a lot of crazies out there and people that need help. So,
well, yeah, that's for sure, especially in this area. So the first 8 months, 2 phases, internalized, dealing with the soul, dealing with the heart, trying to get you to understand that you don't have to be necessarily ashamed or feel a lot of guilt about what you've gone through, that you can kind of transcend those ideas and know a person that's better than yourself, and that's Jesus Christ, and you can become a part of his family, and then you move into phase 3. Phase 3 ends up being a little bit more vocational. We're trying to get you into a position to where you can actually try and apply for a job, get you out into the world. It's kind of like that tiptoe into the pool kind of thing. It's kind of like we're just kind of putting our foot in the water, kind of testing it out a little bit. And it's kind of terrifying because you see the big pool in front of you. You're like, I don't know if I can swim or not, but eventually there's going to be that point where Joanne's going to kind of grab you and throw you into the deep end, and you're going to be like, but you figure it out. Yeah. Right. Yep. So is that where we're going with phase 4? What does phase 4 look like?
That's exactly. And one of the things I wanted to say, with each phase, other things come up.
Right.
And you get to address them. And that's the beautiful thing about program. You're not just seeing a person 1 hour a week for counseling. You get to watch them in their good and their bad. And then we do a lot of conversations. We have a process called the self-eval process. And so let's say the woman chooses not to show up for her dinner chores. And so at least 3-4 times a week in community in that beautiful chapel, we will evaluate our good behavior and our bad behavior. And so I didn't show up for meals. How did that impact you? How did it impact your community? Because unfortunately, when someone's in their addiction, they seldom think about other people.
How do you call people out on that? Do you do that in the self-evaluation?
Yep. And it isn't, I love to say not calling them out, but calling them up.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the evaluation, and I'll use one of my own, is, for instance, because we all do it, volunteers, staff, and residents. And fortunately, this was a few years ago. My self-evaluation was, what did you do? I lied to a friend of mine on the phone. What did you want? I wanted to look like I had my act together. Didn't want them to see that I had dropped the ball. Mm-hmm. How did it impact me? Obviously, I felt shame and guilt and convicted. And how did it impact my environment? I didn't call my girlfriend for a few days because I felt this disconnect. And so then, what would I like to do to change? And so there was that accountability piece. I called my friend up and apologized, and I confessed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the residents are right there asking me questions. And they don't just stick with, well, why did you lie? How important is it for you to look good in community? Not show that you have faults, and asking really good questions. And so that's probably a big integral part of our program throughout every phase. And it's that awareness, being self-evaluating.
And that situation can happen not just in chapel, but in the hallway, in your bedroom. It's a constant there, right?
Well,
you're always, I don't want to say confronting, but you're always in contact.
So
you're always interfacing, for sure.
Interfacing.
Yeah,
it's a
we
good
provide
word.
tools for the lady to say, okay, like one of our tools is the FASTER scale, which means I'm on this quest of probably sliding down the slippery slope. I'm beginning to forget things. I'm anxious. I'm ticked off. The acronyms mean something. And so all of us, not just if you're struggling with addiction, because we all struggle with addictions of some sort, as I had my 3rd cup of coffee this morning, that what you're trying to do is make an awareness, because what do drugs do? They numb. They make you forget, pretend it's never going to come. I don't owe this money. And so what we're trying to do is get you to take responsibility for your behavior, good and bad. And so if Kristin, let's say, she sees me in a really bad mood and I maybe smarted off at somebody, she can go, hey, Joanne, what's going on? I noticed that you were really anxious. Mm-hmm. You might consider doing a self-evaluation.
Does that happen a lot, Kristin?
It hasn't yet, but good to know I have the liberty to do that.
But we
Just
do it for each other.
Yeah.
I notice it's like if you have patterns, taking a look behind the pattern and go, what's going on? And so we do that evaluation throughout all of the program. And so by the time they get to phase 4, the heart is they're just doing it automatically. They don't need us. They're going, what was I thinking? What did I want? Why was I speeding? That type of thing. So in phase 4, the beauty of this is our men and women get a 240-hour internship, a practicum. They go out into the community. We have business partners. And an example that I have, and I love it, is we had a young woman. And so Marcia said, what do you want to do? I want to be a dress designer. And so Marcia connected with a bridal company in town, and she began designing bridal dresses.
Wow, that's great.
You know, we had one individual who wanted to weld, and we connected them with K-Tech and things like that. And so it's not just getting a job. What can you do that you will enjoy? But it also provides them with a safety net. So they go out there into the community, they use their tools, but when they fall, they come home to mom and dad and go, hey, I blew it today. And then we go, let's talk about it.
Because they're used to that. They're used to the safety net.
Yep.
Going back to it, saying, hey.
And these are unpaid internships.
Unpaid.
Yeah. And so if if there happens to be a person out there just listening that is an employer and they're thinking, it might be a good idea to get involved with this and see if I can help out in some way, shape, or form. What are the outlets for redress if something's going wrong with that internship and the person's not listening? Do they communicate with you guys specifically?
Absolutely. So we're having the conversations with the businesses. When they commit to the internship, we're partnering together.
Okay, so it's not like you just turn them over and then you say, okay, here, teach them some stuff, and then
proactive. You're involved with the businesses,
and they give us reports. Hey, they A+, or they're struggling with us, and so we work together because our heart is to help them to succeed. But I'll tell you, most of our men and women get hired, and I have some residents that have their job 7, 8, 9 years.
Wow.
Because they become great employees, sometimes better than people in the community because they've been working on their stuff.
Oh, that's impressive.
I was just at an engagement with Vanessa. She oversees the Children's Village, and they have 3 of our women right now. And she said, your 3 women that came from UGM are our best employees. Do you have any more? And so I had brought a resident with me, and so I could tell she was picking her brain and, giving some plugs to try to get her over there too. So
do you guys send interns over there as well to the Children's Village?
They're actually hired now, but they started as
interns.
Yeah, they did their practicum there.
Nice.
We've had them in medical facilities, tech facilities, the gamut, restaurants, whatever they're interested in, we try to work with them.
You have a placement agent, though, that is like they try to ask what the person is interested in, and then they start seeking around to see if they can find internships for them.
And that's what they're doing in phase 3. Like I said, getting them to dream again.
Yeah. Right. And we know and hope that those that do accept Jesus Christ as Savior, we're not working for our employer. We're working for the Lord. Are a lot of these employees, are they ones that have made a commitment to Christ?
That would be our ideal. But again, it's what is the woman wanting?
Sure.
What I love is I've been in the ministry long enough that right now we have 2 individuals who were our first residents who came through program, now are working for UGM.
Yeah,
wanting to give back, reach out to the women who are doing the same thing they did 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's probably the best people
and
to be.
Encouraging them, Yeah, I love it.
Be teaching and encouraging. I've been there, done that. Yeah.
So phase 4 is the internship, the practicum that has spawned from phase 3. So phase 5 puts you into...
That's when the woman is moving, or the man is moving out, and hopefully they're getting connected with supportive housing, our aftercare program, and that's the transition out.
And then they're out of the program, technically speaking.
They're still in program. So in phase 5, they're living on their own, either in our aftercare housing or somewhere else, but we're still staying pretty tethered to them. It just lasts. It reminds me of your senior in high school when they kind of disappear and you don't see them very often, or now they're in college, but mom and dad are still connected. It's kind of like that. And they have a safe place to come. Mom, I'm hungry. Can I come home and eat tonight?
Yeah. So they can come raid the fridge.
Raid the fridge.
Like my adult son still does.
Yes. He lives too close, though.
Shows up every once in a while, eats all my Chips Ahoy, and then leaves.
About right.
You know how they are. All right. So then, like, when do they actually technically phase out of the program? Like, when does that happen? Or do they ever?
Well, now with our aftercare program, it's been so successful. Our hope is that they don't. Some individuals want to stay connected, and they've been connected for years and years and years. I think sometimes those who don't want the accountability may disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or they reach a point and say, I want this part of my life behind me.
And move on and try and make something
Because-
out of themselves. Or
Because we're not wanting to be the focal point. We want to partner with churches. We want our men and women in the churches. We want them as
Right.
part of a community and a small group and giving back to the church, because that's really where the success is if they can find mentors and sponsors and people who will walk with them besides UGM.
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a great program,
Yeah.
all encompassing, and I think there's a lot more there that you could talk about. As far as you could talk about success rates, you could talk about numbers, you could talk all that, but ultimately, what it boils down to is there's an issue, and we have a group of people that are trying to do something about that issue. And you can either partner with them, or you can just sit on the sidelines and just wish that somebody would do something about it. But I think that's probably a lot of our problem is we just have so many people that are sitting on the sidelines thinking it's somebody else's problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that when it's nobody's problem, or when it's everybody's job, then it's nobody's problem kind of deal, And so you got a lot of people that I think it's Christians particularly that just are thinking that somebody's doing it. Somebody must be doing it. But then you find out that there's no detox centers.
Yeah. That's
and,
surprising.
Then you find out that there's not a whole lot of housing out there.
There isn't a lot of housing.
You find out a lot of these other things that are just below the surface that you don't realize that are there, that are just, they seem insurmountable. But if everybody could work together to accomplish, these things, it could be something that's taken care of. There's, for heaven's sake, there's a clinic that's opening up over on 95, a Christian healthcare clinic that they're trying to get started. And it doesn't seem like it would be that hard of a thing to start a detox clinic, but different liabilities, different insurances, different responsibilities, since there's a lot of things that go into it.
Well,
What is your biggest challenge right now?
biggest challenge, I think in some ways this may sound political. I don't want it to be. I think that the government is doing handouts, providing people with resources so they don't reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has really been a detriment. People have been unable to get on.
They're supporting them in their addiction,
They are.
and instead of helping them.
Yeah. When I talk to women, oftentimes when I say, well, what was the turning point? And they were like, when I had nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
And since COVID especially, people are staying in apartments or houses longer, in their addiction. And so I think that's been the hardest part to see that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to address, Chris, you were talking about the community. I have lived in Coeur d'Alene probably 15, 16 years now. I have never seen a more generous community. The partnerships that have been created, like Heritage Health, they provide our medical care for our women. We work with, I'm forgetting at the abuse place right now, forgetting the name of it. Open Arms. We work with all of these different organizations. Tim Remington's program.
Right.
We all are working together for the same goal. And as you mentioned, you saw our facility. I'm blown away that I get to work in this beautiful facility. It's not a dive. It's not a dump.
No, not at all.
It's exquisite.
And welcoming.
And that it doesn't cost the women anything. It's free. It is all through contributions of the community. No government assistance. And so the beautiful thing is it doesn't cost the men and women anything, but but it costs them everything because they have to make the commitment to want to change and have the transformation. But I don't know any place else that I'm aware of that you can just go for a year to 2 years and not only get fed, get clothed, all the basics, but you're getting your counseling, your medical care, you're learning parenting. Sometimes I think, boy, I wish I could go for 1 year, just hang out here and learn all about myself and the things I need to fix.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling what God has provided in the Inland Northwest.
Amen.
Is the men's center over in Spokane similar?
It is, but of course, women like their facilities a little prettier.
Yeah. Guys aren't so particular.
I mean, the men's, they're actually going to remodel it in this next year or something like that. But
Nice.
the women's facilities are definitely beautiful.
Yeah, they are. They are for sure. They are for sure. Well, maybe we can get people a little bit more aware of what's going on. And
we do tours. You can come for a tour of the facility. We have volunteer opportunities all the time. It doesn't matter what you enjoy doing, we have a place for you.
Can men volunteer at the women's shelter as well? Okay.
It's funny because, oh, goodness gracious, maybe 8 years ago, there was this mindset, you can't have a man working in the women's center because a lot of their trauma is from men.
Men, right.
And my heart was like, well, we have a saying, relationships hurt you, relationships heal you. And so I'm like, we need to have men in this facility. And so we've had men overseeing departments, being involved, volunteer male counselors. It has been such a blessing because women get an opportunity to see what a healthy man looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And they look and go, wow, I didn't know these kind of men existed. And so it provides great opportunity for the women.
Yeah, have an experience with a guy who actually is a decent guy to be around.
And is safe.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. How do the other ministries interface with one another?
Well, I think we do a pretty good job of, for instance, Joanne oversees all of women's ministry. So she's not just overseeing CWC, the center in Coeur d'Alene, but she's also overseeing Anna Ogden Hall and the crisis shelter for women over in Spokane. And so we're trying to keep things consistent. Even in Spokane with the men's program, the first steps, for instance, we're trying to make sure that the first steps at the men's program is the same as the one at the women's program. So all of our counselors and people in similar positions at the different facilities are coordinating with each other. Even in my position, I go to Spokane quite a bit, and I'm working with my counterparts in Spokane. So we are in separate locations, but we're one ministry.
I was talking a little bit more broader in scope. Like, we have a lot of parachurch ministries that are operating in our community. And I'm convinced that there are any number of parachurch ministries that are crossing over purposes and are not aware of it, or are interlinking in a way that would be beneficial to both of them, but they are not aware of it. One example is Safe Families. Have you ever heard of them?
Safe Families or Safe Passages?
Nope, Safe Families.
Idaho.
So there is a group of people who have started a movement in churches to create safe homes for women and children in crisis to go to. We are a part of that. But what I'm finding is that, like, between Safe Families, between Open Arms, between UGM, between any myriad of other kind of parachurch ministries that are out there bestowing the basics here in Athol, you have all these different kind of ancillary kind of parachurch ministries that are operating in any one given area. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interfacing between those ministries to have like a pathway for for instance, like if someone came to this church and they had a particular need, I don't have any way as a pastor to be able to say, here's your starting point. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of synergy, cohesion between a lot of the different parachurch ministries that are happening. And so I'm wondering, just at a surface level, I know we're going to solve any of this issue here, but is there is there an appetite, do you think, for some of these parachurch ministries to begin to try and figure out a way to synergize our organizations so that we are more effective at being able to kind of encompass the whole of humanity, and interfacing with one another?
I totally do. I have, over the years, gone to different facilities to learn what they do. Like I went to, for instance, St. Vinny's, and they have eye care and, Head Start. We look at these things and go, okay, what are the other places? Why do we do it if someone else does it better than us? I just had a couple organizations come to my center in the last month or so, asking us, what do you do? Tell us more about it. And so I think just connecting in the community, reaching out, because even if it's not something that applies to us, having that information has been valuable. So we can send somebody and go, oh, I think this service would probably be better for you. And I know years ago they had like a coalition that got together and did that. I think something like that would be fabulous.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that would look, but how you would begin to organize all of that. But it is something that I think that a lot of ministries are becoming aware of.
I think 3 men at a bar should check into it and figure it out.
Yeah, we are. We're getting it out there. We're at least
that.
trying to make people aware that there is a communication problem. And not only is there a communication problem, but there is a talent problem. We lack a lot of really serious talent here. Like for instance, counselors. We just have a severe lack of qualified counselors to send people to that need mental health issues.
That's one of the challenges we have too, because we try to find counselors that we can outsource, that they will walk the journey with us. So when we're done, they keep carrying the baton. One of the questions you said, what is one of our greatest challenges? And I just thought of it. Staffing.
Yeah.
Because not only our requirement is that you are a Christ follower. Our second requirement is you are actively part of a church. And since COVID, that has just decreased. I don't even know what the percentage is. 30 to 40% of people go to church today. And so that eliminates a large part of the people we can hire. And so it's been hard finding I have 2 counseling positions right now I'm looking for.
Are you posting that? Well, counselors, good luck finding counselors, qualified counselors in our community. There's just, those diplomas don't exist here.
Even someone in our we need someone in our children's program. So we have needs.
Yeah.
And we've even raised our minimum wage so that we're competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done the same thing. We have staffing issues as well. I think no matter where you go, you're going to encounter staffing issues, and it wouldn't seem like that's the case because we have such a large community of believers here that you would think that you would be able to just pull them out of the air, but it's specialized talent. It's just like, trying to find, like, say, for instance, a worship leader in our community. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge because the expertise is just not there. So, I feel you on that. The finding qualified talent is very difficult, particularly when you're talking about counseling. I mean, good grief. It's hard to find them. It's gotten to the point where we may just have to start really investing in training people to be counselors, which is one of the things that we've started doing here. Is we've tried to start pushing people through counseling programs to try and get them spun up on at least how to deal with counseling. It's one of the things we've even talked about in our pastoral staff meetings about going back to school and getting degrees potentially or certifications to be able to do counseling, because it's just a massive vacuum here. It's like, how can we help all these people? We don't have anywhere to send them. And
with the way our society is, counseling has become so prevalent. So many people are, starting with COVID, are, they're messed up. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do. They don't even know how to handle their own lives. And all they really need sometimes is just somebody to sit down with and get them back on that straight and narrow path. And
specialized care to get them in the right direction, for sure. And
I was in women's ministry for 25 years before I took this job, and I was actively involved. And it hasn't been until this last 10 years that I felt just by, I'm not trying to promote UGM here, but just working at UGM, my life has changed. My family's life has changed because we learn healthy tools. We learn boundaries. We learn how to have open-ended questions, the self-evaluation process. And so
these are all counseling tools.
They're all counseling tools.
Yeah.
And you want to promote UGM here? You go for it.
And
we're behind you.
I'm like, I wish I had these tools when I was at a church in ministry, and I find that so many of the churches aren't equipped.
Right.
They're not.
Really sad.
They're not.
Yeah.
Dealing with mental health is one of the areas that the church has failed in over the last few years. And I know that failed is a harsh word, but we have. It's something that we've seen for a long time, and now we're just really coming to the realization of the depth of our mental health issue. And it's playing out not only in drug addiction, but in homelessness. A lot of what you guys deal with is directly related to mental health. And
almost everybody, I want to say everybody, but almost, I would say 80% of the people who walk in our doors also has mental health issues today.
That
and
doesn't shock me.
It seems like it increases. In the last 10 years, I have seen an increase.
Yeah. And the church's method for dealing with that in the past has been throw a Bible verse at it and send you on your way. And that's not how the human mind works. And so, a comprehensive Christian approach to mental health seems like it's on the agenda, needed to be on the agenda 2 decades ago. But it definitely needs to be on the agenda now. And I think we didn't break up to it until we started trying to help people and realize that we were not qualified to help people, and then trying to send people to someone that's qualified.
Yeah.
They're just not there. They're just not there.
And if the ones that are there, they're overburdened.
They're so busy. It's like a 2-year waiting period, and so, there's challenges for sure that we can all face together. And it's good to know that we have people out there in our community like UGM that are specializing in areas and can really help in some areas and have people to send to them.
People who are individuals who are interested in wanting to be part of a program. We train them. We send them to trainings, maybe not full counseling, but at least they can get tools to help them to be we are driven by our volunteers. We have just at CWC about 150 to 175 volunteers.
Wow. That's amazing.
What would you need to be fully staffed as far as volunteers are concerned?
You always need more. One more.
Yeah.
Because
your volunteers are always part-time.
Well, they go on vacation.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Kristin, you have any last thoughts for us?
Thanks for having us. It's been really neat to be able to share about what we do, and we appreciate the time.
Yeah, we appreciate what you guys do. Joanne, do you have any last words for us?
I don't. Again, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Greg?
Yes.
I know you have some last words, so just go ahead.
Do. We have some links here to the Daily Bulletin that will be on our site when this plays out. And a free tip sheet on how to handle a panhandler, which I thought was quite interesting. Number 1, treat them with dignity. That's something that most people, when they see somebody on the streets, that's certainly not the first thing that comes to their mind. They usually just turn away and don't want to have anything to do with that, maybe even have some negative thoughts. And then it goes on to talk about how to help them, and that's one of the things that we learned from Phil was don't give them money, give them food, give them a place, give them a bus ticket, give them, help them in a fashion that is going to help them and not that's going to make you feel better, because that's really what that is when we give them the money. So ladies, thank you so much for coming out. It's been great. And I don't know, Chris, did you want to close with some of these what you can do's?
I don't know. Do I? What can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do? You can pray for the leadership, staff, volunteers, and guests at UGM. I'm sure you guys always covet prayers, don't you? Do you guys ever turn down prayers?
Never.
No.
I'm coming.
It's like, oh, no, we have enough of those today. Thank you. You could shop at the UGM thrift store on North Government Way in Coeur d'Alene. We've been there a couple of times. We like going there. It's fun. It's an incredible facility. Gosh, what a beautiful building for a thrift store.
And it smells
They know
good.
how to do it.
It
smells good.
Yeah, it doesn't smell bad. Yeah. And you can read the how to help a panhandler tip sheet that we'll have available in our guide or in our link below. Then you can contribute financially if you can. Any little bit helps, and it's a tough world out there with inflation and everything else that's going on. Food costs are going up. I'm sure you guys are seeing your costs go up exponentially. So financial help is really appreciated. If you are an attender here at Athol Baptist Church, you are contributing to the Union Gospel Mission on a regular basis with your tithes and offerings, and so we appreciate that. But if you would like to designate some for Union Gospel Mission, just send that check straight to them. You don't have to send it here. They're a nonprofit as well, and so you can send it straight to them. Cut out the middleman, and then you can. I'm sure you guys get charitable donations all the time, correct? So contribute. And then the other thing you can do is consider volunteering. And if you would like to contact them about volunteering, you certainly can. Where would they go to start that process of trying to get on to volunteer?
The process is we have 2 volunteer orientations a month, one on a Tuesday morning at 10 and one on a Tuesday evening. That kind of fits their schedules. And so if they just call the Center for Women and Children, UGM's Center for Women and Children, they can sign up for the next orientation.
Get you lined up on the next orientation coming up. Awesome. So I just really appreciate you guys. You guys are one of the organizations in our community that we really just enjoy supporting, and the work that you guys are doing, and we appreciate it because we couldn't do it on our own. And so we just appreciate being able to partner with you guys, and hope to continue to be able to support you guys in any way that we can, and pray for you guys. And how about let's have a word of prayer right now. Greg, would you pray for us?
Father, we thank you once again for just being able to put our feet on the ground and our hands to the wheel, and to be able to help organizations like UGM and CWC. And Father, as we prepare our hearts to finish out the rest of this day, may we constantly, Lord, be thinking about those that are less fortunate than ourselves. I know that sounds a little cliche, but Father, we are a country that is prosperous beyond imagination in many places. And so we just ask, Father, that you would help us to think on that, and then to react and act on that by giving either of our time, of our funds, and just to be able to help out an organization like this that has helped so many in the past, is helping people right now, and will be helping so many in the future. We thank you, Father, for putting that spirit of help in us. And we just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, and amen. Well, I'll leave you with Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 through 40. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all nations, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place his sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. And the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." Well, that about does it for us today. As always, we thank you for joining us. If you have any ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us investigate, or a guest you'd like to hear us interview, send us an email at 3p@atholbaptistchurch.org, and we will be sure to ignore them with the rest of them. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you, Ken, who's actually here but is actually not here. Greg and Gavin's not actually here helping, so no thanks to you, Gavin. And thank you, Athol Baptist Church and its members for generous support of this ministry. We really appreciate you guys. Again, thank you for listening. Until next time, remember the Great Commission to go into the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do likewise. And with that, we are out.